Assalamualaikum everyone. Once again, it's Arif Khan here with Islam Media, welcoming you all to our weekly podcast. This is week 4 preview, and today we have a full house again with all my colleagues here. So let's introduce everyone here. Where are we? There we go.
Assalamualaikum, guys.
Welcome, Ahmad, Omar.
Assalamualaikum.
All right, boys, good to have you back. So before we even start, I got to preface this by saying I was not at the game last week, so I'm going to be literally just the host here, and I'll let the gentlemen who were here make most of the comments here. So I think, Omar, you weren't there either, right?
Nope, I'm just a pretty face today.
Oh, you're always
We need that
debatable.
sometimes.
Yeah. I've been told that I have a face for radio, so
well, this is kind of like radio, right? So
yeah.
we're all good here. All right, so let's begin here. Let's do that. Okay, so first lineup for today. Typo. Week 3 should be week 4. Who did this? Fire him. No worries. Post game preview. We're looking at the 3 stars of the game, the One World Halal Player of the Week. We actually have player transactions, believe it or not. First time we have a trade this year.
Nice.
Not a trade, but a transaction. Sorry, my bad. League announcements, reminders, and then week 4 preview. So let's start it off with the first game of the night. I believe it was Sabr versus Rida. My team. We couldn't make it. Well, I couldn't make it. So somebody tell me what happened.
Well, even though maybe I'll start because I was in the game, but even though RFU yourself didn't show up, the team, although shorthanded, I believe they only had 2 subs, did show up, and I mean, impressive efforts from Asim Patel. He was a previous player of the week, and this kind of just goes to show you that even though that the team is short bench, there are certain players like Asim Patel that you cannot leave them alone. You cannot give them any room whatsoever, because this game, it was a lot closer. You can see it on Rida's face. There was sweat. There was sweat everywhere, and not just from the gameplay. They're just like, where this team has only 2 subs, and we're about to get dominated by them. And it kind of motivated Rida to step up, and I'm glad to see that step up, because you can see here for the first start, Wasim Wada, first round pick from Rida, and he stepped up, and that's what they kind of wanted to see. I think he went pointless last game, so it's nice to see him on the board alongside Arslan Mian. He had a great first game. Second game, he was a little quiet. I think he got injured, but he kind of stepped up and he fed Wasim all of those points. So I would not be surprised to see Arslan and Wasim continue to have that line in their next match against Taqwa. And, the other thing I've noticed is Faraz Elvi. So funny thing is that Huzaifa Mandra on Sabr mentioned that, Faraz Elvi should be playing defense. And that's what Rida did. They put Faraz Elvi on defense, and he's on the scoreboard now. Well, he's got an assist, so he's got a point. But I think, they're starting to see some chemistry within Rida, and they're starting to understand where they need to put their players.
Well, I think you should also mention that even though, as you said, there were only 2 subs, we were missing our entire GM trio and then a few other players too, right?
Yeah, I just want to put out there that I was the one who said for us to go on defense. Just gonna.
Oh,
well, yeah. I mean, we can reference the previous podcast if you like.
No, I'll believe you. I believe you.
It just goes to show that I think people are really paying attention to the podcast. Last week, I think there's a little bit of call on Wasim to say, okay, your first round pick, you haven't really performed really well. I think you only played 1 game at that point, but still, his team really needed him, and he stepped up. And at the same time, there were comments made that maybe Faraz should drop back to D, and it seemed to work out. But having said that, I mean, this game was way closer than it should have been. given how shorthanded Suber was, and Rida did have a full team. Usman Batar, he was injured. He was the only one, and he was standing. He was at the bench actually, but I think that was just way too close to call for Rida. So it's still a little concerning on how they squeaked out a win there. But full marks to Suber for coming out with that such a close game. And it was close. Awesome had some amazing chances that could easily have gone in. Just a hair wide of the net. But really strong performance all around.
Yeah, we attribute a lot of that, saves from Rida's goalie Nadir Ahmed. He stepped up, and I think the team's asked a lot of him, and I think it's going to be time for Rida to finally step up themselves, because if this game was a tie game, I guarantee you Suber would have been happy and consider that a win, and Rida would have been like, I think Ali Wadi would be messaging all the other GMs, and you never know, they start opening the trades.
Take Hanan off my hands.
No, every single week Hanan mentions something about a Rida trade. Like, I feel like he's,
No.
He's just dropping hints at this point.
I'm absolutely not. I think we have a fast and effective team. I would never want to be traded.
But
not yet.
You look at the shot totals too, and Rida doubled up on Suber as well. And there were not those shots from all the outside, which we've been talking about in the past few games. So they're definitely turning things around, it looks like, and hopefully it only gets better from here on out. Well, until of course they play us in a couple of weeks. But
who's the goalie for Suber? Was he there?
So that's what I was going to say is our goalie Yasser, he couldn't make it either. So we actually went and sought the services of Mr. Fahad Mohammed, Mr. Shoutout himself.
Yep.
Unfortunately, we delivered his first loss for him.
Oh no.
Yeah. So in honor of Fahad Mohammed, his loss, I'm wearing this giant jersey today.
FYI for people who don't know, he's a Red Wings fan.
All right, let's move on to the next game. The second game of the evening saw a 3-2 win, Haya over Takwa.
This is another game where we saw Takwa's, it's not Haya, it's not Ikhlas. That's not the big enemy for Takwa. It's the bench. There's no one playing for this team, and it's literally you have 5 guys on, and it's an empty bench. When you say COVID be 6 feet apart, you don't have to worry when you're on Takwa. There's plenty of room on that bench, and it's hard for them to put together an actual offense. It's a lot of individual efforts that we're seeing. Now, to that point, we did see we see a lot of actual group play at the end of that game. I don't know if that's Haya just kind of like taking their foot off the pedal and be like, okay, this game's a wrap, let's just hold off. But they got punished for it. There was a lot of 2 goals from Mohamed Patel. Riaz and Habibi and Sahil Mohammed are also got points. So definitely a lot of group effort from Takwa. But from Haya's end, and I think Imad, you pointed this out just earlier, like Sufyan Sheikh had a quiet hat trick. I knew it was a hat trick.
He's not even a star.
Yeah,
Wow.
I don't know how that ended up happening with the
player of the week. Come on.
Well, we'll get to the player of the week, but the player of the week did have a more outstanding performance, in my opinion.
So what's going on with Takwa? I mean, they haven't won any games, right? They've just been losing and losing.
The only pointless game in the league right now, pointless team in the league, and it's been. I think it's been solely attributable to attendance issues.
Because I mean, they were ranked pretty high, as they should be. Like, look at their lineup on paper. It's crazy.
I think missing Farouk Khan, especially with the team, I don't think they drafted to account for that. So even if their full team is there, I don't think that they have the strongest defense without him. I think it's necessary for him to be there for them to be a complete team. But yeah, I mean, you're right. Actually, I was going to bring this up later, and maybe I'll just touch on it now. I think this is the first season that we've had this much non-attendance, especially early, right? So like, there's quite a few short benches thus far. Obviously, Takwa is suffering a little bit more. I mean, there's only so much skill that you can put on top of fatigue, right? So once you're tired, there's not really much you can do, no matter how skilled you are, right?
Well, it looks like Habibi here, Ahmed Ibrahim, says it's still early in the season. Takwa will be fine. Obviously,
do you think though that if the playoff structure was at the weakest team in each division does not make it, that attendance would not be an issue?
I don't think so. I mean,
Yeah, I agree. I don't think that's an issue. A lot of guys are just catching up on like life, right? Just like hockey started back up again, people are getting married, they're going on trips, things like that. There are some guys who have been injured, and whether that's attributable to being inactive or largely inactive during the last 18 months or so, maybe. But I don't think the playoff situation would have any bearing on that.
No, I know Farouk is obviously a really good player. He's their GM, makes a big difference. But to be fair, other teams have missed GMs too. I mean, in Suber's case, one of our GMs has not shown up yet because he's has work or yet to go play in nationals and stuff. Same thing with what is it? Shoot, remind me. Saj's team. That's Ikhlas, right?
Yeah.
Class, yeah, they missed one GM, I think.
Yeah.
Yusuf. Yusuf did
Yusuf-
play the first
But
game.
the
I thought
difference is-
after that.
The difference though for Takwa though is they're not just missing GMs, they're missing a lot of other core guys,
Yes,
particularly
agreed.
guys and up and down through the lineup. So you're talking guys who were taking in the first few rounds, guys who were taking in the middle of the draft, and guys who were taking later down in the draft too.
Yeah.
And that's really had an impact. You talk about a guy like Arif Bichabai or Irfan Banapatel. I don't think they played in either of the last two games, and those are your second and third round picks. So they're not GMs, but they definitely make a huge impact on the team and their bodies. It's a short bench as it is for the season, and when you miss more than two guys, it really, really hurts.
Well, then is it time to look at maybe some trades, given the fact that it's a third of the season has passed? There's probably a deadline coming up in a few weeks. Maybe you give up some of your talent for just bodies that show up.
I don't think so. To be honest, like it's what you guys said, right? Like what I said, I think the playoff structure is very forgiving in the sense that if you still believe in your team, if you still think on paper that your team can go the distance, you're just hoping everyone shows up in the finals. And as long as you're like, hey, are you going to show up during playoff time? Yep, perfect. It doesn't matter if you show up during the regular season.
Well, I mean, it's still tough the first round if you're not getting the top seed. Mm-hmm. You're starting off with one loss to begin the series, right?
I mean, they're already 0-3, right? Like at this point, it's a struggle to get back up, and I wouldn't risk trading at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Rumors are that they're going to have a very full lineup coming out next week. So
well,
there remains to be seen.
If you're going to trade with somebody, you can't trade a player that has not played any games, right? So you can't be like, oh well, I'll give you this guy. He hasn't played any games yet, but I can promise you he's pretty good. Because we don't know why he's not showing up. He could be injured, right? So they might think, you're going to try to bamboozle someone into, accepting a trade that maybe shouldn't be made. So I think they're going to sit tight. When they do get going, I think that they'll roll. We saw it last season with Takwa as well, with the same GM core. And so I think once they have everybody there and they win the first one, they get the monkey off their back, they'll be fine.
And here's the last thing I wanted to say is that in terms of, I just want to say goals, the shots on goals were the exact same. Roughly.
That's not exact.
10 to 13.
All right, we got to move on here. The next game of the night, third one, was Ikhlas versus Isan, and this was a 4-1 win for Ikhlas.
Imad, I'll let you start.
Yeah, I mean, all you can say is Ikhlas really dominated. They had a very short bench. I believe they only had 2 subs. We were short bench too, but we had a few more guys. They just outplayed us. They had more energy, a harder forecheck, probably a more cohesive game, which is also attributable to what we've spoken to in the past, is that a lot of those guys have played hockey with each other for a very, very long time. So it was just natural for them. And some of those guys are used to playing big minutes, and it was definitely visible in that game.
Here's the problem I have with Isan, and I see a lot of teams do this, is that I think Ikhlas took 4 penalties that game. So you had your power play unit on for 4 shifts, and they had 0 goals, from my understanding. Was it 0 goals?
There's 1 power play goal.
1 power play goal? Okay, 1 power play goal, but there was 1 shorthanded goal. If statistically you feel like your power play is not working, why don't teams try to switch it up a little bit? Or if you were a GM at one point, like what's your stance on a power play that's not functioning?
I think you should switch it up. I mean, if it's not functioning find out why. Is it you have the wrong players on, or the other team just has your number? They counter well, so either switch it up a little bit, but it goes back to the same saying, right? Like if you continue to do the same thing over and over again, don't expect different results.
Right.
I mean, yeah, you're missing Riaz and Isawi both on the point, and they would have probably made a little bit of a difference on that power play. Riaz probably more with his puck moving or ball moving, and Isawi with his big shot from the point. So yes, we struggle on the power play, but we are also missing some key guys on the power play.
And to that degree, I will say Isan was also short players. I think you had only 2 additional subs compared to Iklas. So whereas they only had 2 people on the bench, you had 4 people on the bench. I think this was just strictly a matter of a fight between cardio. And Iklas won. And it may be also, better positioning. They're not running as much out there, but, they did not look tired. And that was the difference. I think after that first period, the only player on Isan that actually put up any type of offense was Hamza. And strictly through because of his speed. There was nothing else happening on Isan's team at that point. And it honestly looked really one-dimensional that game. It was a matter of just saying how much more Iklas could score, because at no point did I think that, Isan's going to, step up and start winning, because Iklas was not stopping.
I saw some of the highlights while I was away. You guys were nice enough to send me some highlights, and there were some clips of Iklas on the power play, and it just looked crazy. Isan, like Team Red, couldn't touch the ball. I was extremely impressed.
And a lot of it's attributed to Hamza Chaudhry. Like on the GM, he's stepped up. I think his gameplay has been better this season than any other season I've seen him play. And it's because he's also surrounded by people he can trust. He has Razi, he has Sajid. Honestly, he has Shahryar Khan on the defensive point, and even Saqib stepped up. Saqib Kokar.
Second star.
Really nice goal from Saqib, and then also from Hamza, where he deked out the guy and went backhand on the goalie. So
it's funny, like
strong performances.
I look at Iklas, and you can pretty much name every single player, and you're like, this person contributed to the win. You had Farouk Khan, you had Zaid Mukaddam, like everyone contributed. If I look at Isan, the only player I remember was Hamza, unfortunately, because of that was the only offensive push I saw.
Yep, definitely a lot of learnings for next week, and hopefully a larger turnout. What made us really successful in week 1 was that we had a lot of bodies, high energy game, and relentless. And the last couple of weeks, unfortunately, we've been lacking the bodies, and that's hurt our game plan. Not an excuse, but it is what it is.
All right, on to the next one. I think this was the last game of the night, right? Yakin versus Iman, and wow, 5-1, and looks like Josefa, he had quite the night.
Well, all 3 GMs are the first 3 stars in for Yakin, so that just shows you like this is a dominant team. This is a sleeper team. Like they could easily, any other team that you think can win, this team can easily step up and steal the win. And it's all because of these 3 GMs. They're talented. They work well with each other. Huzaifa, he's got that wicked shot. Now to Iman's point, I think they were also short benched. I think they had only 3 subs, and it hurts, especially when you're against a really fast team like Yakin. Not only the 3 GMs, I think that first goal was all because of Kadir. He ran in and he ended up scoring the goal, and he was in front of the net. That's the defenseman in front of the net, and that's what you get when you draft Kadir, when you draft Arsenal. You have defense who can move up, and you're still going to be safe.
Yeah, and we
super skilled, right?
Sorry.
I mean, we had said this from before, is that once these guys start clicking, it's almost game over, right? And I mean, Hanan, you and I played with them last year.
Oh, yeah.
And so they have very, very good chemistry. I think they're quite underrated in terms of, I think Mohamed Kazi was leading the league in goals before but like, I mean, he doesn't really get the recognition. And point, there you go, right? But he doesn't really get the recognition that some of the other guys do. And so that, I guess, yes, maybe for the majority of the league, they would be sleepers, but I mean, for us, knowing them and playing with them, I think these guys are just as talented, if not more, than most of the GMs present in the league right now.
And I've said it before multiple times. I think Mohamed Kazi, he's the most underrated superstar of the league. Like, having played with him before, he's one of the easiest guys to play with on the floor, and people just don't give him enough credit.
And to the degree, I think the way they drafted it was really well. Mohamed Patel is the goalie. I can't describe the number of highlight reel saves I saw this guy make, and for some reason everyone in Iman keeps trying to beat him glove side, and I think it's just the way Mohamed Patel plays. He keeps taunting you to shoot glove side, and all you see him just whip out that leather every single time, and it's incredible how he's he ended up managing to stop Iman to only just one goal in that entire night out of the 13 shots on net. But man, like I think Yakin's going to start snowballing from this point onwards. I think they got their legs, as you mentioned, and it's only going to be good stuff.
We talked a lot about Yakin. It's if we talk about Iman now, they were missing their GMs again. Jihad and Yusuf Suleiman were not there. I believe Osama showed up kind of right at game time or shortly after. And you need those guys to be there to be successful. Now, they did pull out a win against Rida the week before with a similar lineup, but you can't get lucky, if I can say that, every week with a lineup that short. So I think they got a little bit of a reality check, and Yakin caught them on their back foot. So it's going to be key for them to be able to get some more guys out next week.
And I gotta say one thing, which is, if a lot of teams are thinking that, it's fine, it's everyone makes the playoffs, wait till the playoffs, we'll all be showing up and they will win the game. Remember, you're going to have a team that you haven't played with all season, right? It still takes you. It's still a team sport. You need some chemistry, and if you're wondering that, are you going to get it on the first game of the playoffs? You might not.
I'm curious if Osama Sullivan realizes he's playing hockey. Every single penalty he's taken has been body checking, roughing. It's not football out there. Like, your team needs you. You're the GM. Half the time you're spending on the bench.
He does seem one of the more animated guys, arguing the penalty each time too. So
it's never helped any team. I've never seen anyone argue a penalty and the refs is like, oh yeah, you know what, you're right. Let's reverse the call.
I think that's a Suleiman trait.
Hey, you never know. It might work out. All right, so here we have it, folks. The One World Halal Player of the Week is none other than Josefa, with 3 goals and 1 assist. So hat trick and an assist there. Definitely an amazing performance. I think it's the best performance statistics wise so far in the season by anyone.
Yep, and well deserved. As Omar mentioned, we played with Josefa, and one of the things I remembered playing with him was that he is constantly coaching his team. He's constantly helping you improve on the bench. He'll call out things you should improve on, things you missed. He'll make sure you know your assignment, and it's one of those GMs that you play for. And there are certain GMs that have this quality where you want to play better, not just for yourself, not for the GM, but for the team, because you realize that it's a team effort. And I'm happy to see that he got Player of the Week for this week.
Yeah, with the NHL 2022 coming up soon, maybe he'll be too busy with Chell and he won't show up to some games. Who knows?
I don't know who's going to give up real hockey for a video game, but I don't think Josefa is one of those guys.
You never know.
I don't know. We did have a summer pickup last year where someone missed pickup just because they were up late playing video games. I won't name them, but they were one of my the Isan GMs.
Who was that?
Wow. I'm not going to name any names, but it was.
I narrowed it down to 3 guys. I didn't name anyone.
All right, forget about that. So here we have one transaction that happened, and somebody want to talk about this one?
Yeah. So Mr. Mobeen is withdrawing for personal reasons, and then we replaced him with Wahad Salam, who is the brother of Furqan Salam, the younger brother. I believe he's played in Iceland before. And so we're really excited about this, the prospect of being able to, play with this brother. And we see him slotting in probably on the second line. And, so we'll have the Salam brothers probably with Ibrahim Hindi.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully it brings a nice 1-2 punch from our top 2 lines.
So Mobeen is gone?
So he says.
I guess this transaction is probably a long time coming. I mean, we should have probably had something a couple of weeks ago. We went 2 games without knowing that Mobeen was not going to be there, and I think it definitely hurt us. I'm not saying it would have changed the end result, but it would definitely at least made it closer. But it is what it is, and it's a weird season this year. So
Yeah, and it's really unfortunate because Mobin was playing really well at the first game that he played. He was. We even had a sort of a video segment on him on how well he played.
yeah,
Yep.
he was great. He was great, and I playing on the same line as him. He set me up twice, 2 great chances that one game.
Mhm.
And he was just awesome. And it's a big loss for us, but we're hoping that Wahaj can more than make up for it.
Yep. So, Mobin, good luck, and Wahaj, welcome. All right. So, moving on to some league announcements. So this past week was the entrance also to the front.
Yeah, so very the same as last week.
Mhm.
And for those who weren't there last week, RF, we're not entering through the side doors anymore. Make sure you enter through the front doors and bring your photo ID, physical photo ID. A picture of it isn't sufficient, and then you can bring proof of vaccination, either PDF on your phone or something, or a paper copy, just to gain access. You sign in at the front desk as well, and then you make your way to the rink. We also had access to change rooms, which was awesome. I
Nice.
think it helps prep for the game a little bit better, and then also debrief after the game. Get the team a little bit together without interference from other random people on other teams. Breaking up discussions. For those of you who like to shower after a game, Faisal Mehboob, they aren't available yet. So just keep that in mind.
So every team there had their own lockers with locks and everything.
Yeah, so the GMs, I think they were given instructions to bring their own locks or provide someone on the team to provide it. But every team had access to a locker room for pre-post game and during, of course.
Cool. All right. So what's change room was refreshing for sure. I don't know what you did in there, Habibi, to make yourself refreshed, but sure, I'll take your word for it.
It's the easy access to the toilet, man.
There you go.
All right. So now let's move on to the next 4 games for this week.
So important for this week. Now we go cross division games. So 4 straight weeks of cross division. These guys are not going to play each other again unless they meet in the finals, I believe. So it's going to be interesting to see how these play out now.
Okay. So it looks like another 8 p.m. game for Saber, and this time we are facing Haya, Team Grey.
I like this. I like this match. I think this is probably going to be one of the better games to watch, and it's going to be very interesting. I felt in the first game that Asim Patel had his way with the Iman defense, and I think that Haya has a very good defense, and they're also a lot bigger. So I'm going to be interested to see if Haya is able to contain the GM trio, as well as Asim, as well as all of the other offensive threats that have presented themselves, right? So like yourself, Arif, Khalil Coker, Faisal, even Faisal has chipped in. Didn't he have like a 4-point game?
It was a 4-point game. He had 4 points until last week, I think.
Oh, okay.
Multi-game, point games.
Yeah, but my point is that it's going to be very interesting to see how Haya adjusts, because I don't think that they're as fast as Saber. I don't think it's there. And so what my inclination is they might result to a little bit of physicality, and it's going to be interesting to see how much or how little the refs will kind of let go.
Yeah. I think the keys to the game from Saber's point of view will be, will we have all our GM show up? Will we have a full bench, as has been the problem with most teams? And keys to the game for Haya, I would think, would be, can they really exert their dominance physically, and can they get that Haya hustle back? Because that's going to make a big difference.
The other question for them is who's going to play in net. We know their goalie Kapoor is going to be away for the next couple of weeks as well. So it's that's the question right now.
I believe Mobin's free now, right? Now that Mobin's out.
Well, he's withdrawn from the league. I don't know if he can come back as a sub, but as a replacement player. But the other thing, you mentioned physicality. Saber has, I think, maybe not as physical as Haya, but they definitely have some guys who can play physical. You have Asim Patel, you have Baksh, who's been, as evidenced by his Instagram reel, working out every day.
Mhm.
I'm sure there are guys who can step up and play that physical. Tahir Maruf can be a little bit physical and nasty when it needs to be. So
Yeah.
I think it'll be a really good matchup. I agree with you. So it's probably one of the more interesting matchups for this week.
Cool. I can't wait because I've been deprived from hockey for a whole week, and I'm just itching to get back into it. So yeah, it'll be fun. Second game of the night will be Iman versus Ikhlas. So that's orange versus green.
Yeah, so we've seen the dominating performance of Ikhlas, and I think we've seen like their best players, but we haven't seen Yusuf Ahmed yet. So he's definitely going to hopefully show up this week. And for Iman, I think it's not going to be any surprise what to expect when they face Ikhlas. It's just going to be a matter of, are they going to have the attendance to kind of show up and face Ikhlas head on? Because they do have talented players. It's just they don't have the energy to go toe to toe with Ikhlas's top guys at this point. And I think they need their full roster to show up. And honestly, this could be a close game. So I wouldn't say Ikhlas would win. It depends on the attendance is going to win. That's all I'm going to say.
You mentioned attendance, and one name that sticks out is Fuzzy, and he hasn't shown up, in pickup or the exhibition or the first 3 weeks of the season. Don't know what's happening with him, and maybe there comes a point where they are having attendance issues, and they have to have a discussion with him about whether he's going to be there and how they replace him.
From what I heard, is he was injured playing softball. That's what happens when you don't play real sports.
Well, yeah. So
speedy recovery for him, but I agree with Hanan. Is if Iman doesn't come out with the requisite personnel on their bench, very very similar to what happened to Hassan last week, they're probably just going to get steamrolled. I think that one of our players actually mentioned that Ikhlas is a team that is built to play with any number of players that they have. They can play with one guy on the bench. They can play with 10 guys on the bench. It doesn't really matter because the level at which they play outside of Islam, right? So I think Iman really has to try to get as many people to be present as possible so that, as these guys eat up ice time, they're able to send out reinforcements that might be fresh. So, I think that Iman really needs to have a conversation with their team saying, guys, we really need you to be out there if you can, and see what happens. I almost think that teams need to go like New Jersey Devil style with Ikhlas and like almost play like a trap, boring game. Because once you try to go toe to toe with them offensively, I think they'll just eat you up. I think, my strategy would really just be like line those 5 guys up in the neutral zone and, clog it up as much as possible.
I mean, Iman's playing this week, so we'll see.
You know what? Go ahead, Ahmad.
No, just a shout out to one of the Ikhlas members, Samad Hamidi. He's welcomed a new child, or him and his wife have welcomed a new child into this world. And big mubarak for him.
Congratulations. Awesome.
So is he coming? Is he going to show up, or is he going to be sleep deprived?
He has to give us all desserts, doesn't he? Newborn baby.
Can you do that with COVID?
Laddus
all around. It might be their trick, give Iman all the laddus, slow them down, and there you go.
They don't even need tricks, man. They got it all going.
Well, I got to say one thing about the classes. I think they've pretty much established that they are the team. Everyone has to step up to play against them. You cannot take a night off against a class, and especially you cannot take penalties against them. They're just too dominant.
And sorry, just one other thing on the class. Naeem Malik hasn't been out at all either. So there are 2 teams with 1 guy who hasn't been out at all. And I wonder if there's a decision going to be made on either of those guys at some point.
Maybe a trade to Haya with the other Maliks.
Well, I think Naeem, I spoke to him a while ago. He wanted to. Well, apparently this is his retirement season. So if it is, I think you're taking it early by not showing up.
So I forgot to tell me you actually have to play.
Yeah, and I know he wanted to play with certain players. I don't know specifically who. I can make some guesses, but you still got to show up to play some games, right? Even if you're not playing, show up on the bench. I don't know. Like, let's see you. Where are you? You're always on the chats, right? But we don't see you.
Another guy, Salman Azmat, he's been all over the world, apparently, doing all sorts of things. So we'll see when he gets back as well.
Yeah, I have this very cool highlight idea that I need Salman to be present for. So please hurry up, Sully.
All right. So, what is this? The third game of the night: Rida Blue versus Takwa Black. So, Hanan, you're up here.
So I think this is going to be an interesting game for both teams. If Takwa shows up, it's going to be that key decision maker to really understand like how your team is doing and compared to other teams that have their full team here. It's Takwa's way of saying that, you know, we didn't have everyone before, but if we have everyone now, how are we compared to the rest of the league? And it's Rido's way of saying, you know, we were a little bit shaky in the beginning. Now we're facing a dominant team that has everyone here. We know they're dominant. We just know that they haven't had people show up. And can we step up against a team that's all there? And it's going to be a key decision maker for both teams. And I honestly, I'm hoping to see, you know, both teams step up. Obviously, I would want to see Rida win. And I kind of want to see what Takwa has to bring because, you know, I think it's time that Rida needs to start facing teams that have everyone there and, you know, finally have like a, you know, one-on-one competitiveness to it. Because right now, if you're not facing teams that are fully there, you're not going to be ready for the playoffs.
Where's your other GM?
Usman Butter?
Mm-hmm.
I think he's, what was it, load management? Is it what they call it? Is it injured or?
Yeah, because I saw him that the first night, I think, or second night. Unfortunately, he couldn't play, but he was playing in the other tournament. But shouldn't he be ready to join, or is he still injured?
I think that's going to be a game time decision. I think he was injured from softball, so we'll see if he recovers in time. But I think that's game time decision for sure.
I heard differently. I think he's going to be out a little bit longer, but straight from the horse's mouth. But we'll see.
Game time decision.
You know, I would just wonder if you just put the nail in the coffin there, Hanan, with calling your team to be successful this week because you're usually against your team. I don't know if there's been some WhatsApp group chat pressure on you.
Intervention.
He's probably been laughing at his jokes. That's why he's, you know, he's a little bit happier with them now.
They've been giving me the silent treatment on there.
So with Takwa, they're going to, hopefully we hear they're going to have most of their guys back this week, which is going to be refreshing for them. And then also probably for anyone watching the games too, seeing a team that's evenly matched a little bit, at least with bodies. You know, touching on something that Isawi said earlier when we were doing the recaps for last week is when you draft guys, you expect a certain other guys to be there so that they can play their game. And one of those guys is Alil Chauhan. And I just overheard a conversation he was having with someone else right after the game, still on the rink, is that with so many guys missing, while a defenseman, he's having to play a more defensive game. And that doesn't allow him to play his game and rush up and create offensive chances and opportunities for his teammates. So he's probably one of the guys who will hopefully benefit the most with a fuller lineup. But that remains to be seen.
Yeah, I think Takwa's gonna be a bit short this week as well. I don't think they're gonna have their full bench, but it's gonna be interesting. I mean, look, this could be, in my opinion, revealing in one of two ways, right? Number one, it could be the victory that Rida needs to say, okay, you know what, we can do this, or it could be the monkey off Takwa's back and say, okay, well, we finally got one, right? And I mean, based on how both of these teams have been playing, I think both of them probably need a win.
Yeah,
I mean, Rida has a win. Like,
no,
that's not,
well, another win.
Yeah,
but
that
you
wins
just
with an asterisk.
Yeah, and you literally just said that they were missing their top 5 players, and you guys barely squeaked out the win.
Yeah, I told attendance plus Rida beat Summer. What do you want to say?
Habibi just won't let it go. Takwa will be fine. We're okay.
Well,
Are you in denial there, Habibi, or are you serious?
He's had the Kool-Aid.
The licorice flavor. All right, and so the last game of the evening will be, inshallah, Yakin versus Ihsan. So white versus red.
The team that's trending upwards versus the team that's trending downwards. So, you know, for me, I would definitely give the win to Yakin here just because of what I've been seeing thus far. Ihsan, you know, it's been crumbling under its own weight. I don't think they've been playing as a team. Like that first game that they came together was an incredible game. And I just think that we haven't seen that same game from Ihsan. I don't know what the issue is. I mean, obviously, Omar, you guys can probably speak a little bit highly on that one. But for Yakin, I mean, they're just getting better and better. And I think it's either a matter of who's going to stop the snowball from getting too big.
Look, the first game that we lost was against Haya. And that was a very even game up until the last 40 seconds where, the ball trickled in, right? So I'm not going to, and I think RF mentioned that looked like a playoff game. Both teams played very well that game. So in your sample size, you have one bad game where, myself, I was missing, Riaz was missing. I'm not saying they weren't missing guys either last week, but I mean, you have basically, your GM defenseman and then your first picked defenseman, if you will, right?
Mm-hmm.
Would that have made a difference? I don't know. But with regards to this game, I think the keys are going to be just containing the speed. Very similar to what Ikhlas, the game plan was supposed to be against Ikhlas, was that these guys have very good chemistry as well. They're able to kind of be in the right position. And if you don't head that off or you don't establish some kind of physical presence with these guys, they're just going to run wild on you.
Yeah, I agree fully, Asawi. And drawing comparisons to the being short on Ikhlas versus Isan, I know we went through that, but it's really Isan was built, in my opinion, to be a team that's successful with a full team, with all their bodies. Whereas Ikhlas, they can get by with guys missing. So I think that's going to be key for Isan, is just to have guys come out, and early indications are hopefully, knock on wood, inshallah, that we do have a much fuller lineup. But Yakin, like you said, they had a super game last week, and they're really trending up. And it'll be key just to contain that top line. Also to know that Arsenal wasn't there last week, and at least I don't think he was. So to have him back potentially, and then Kadir as well, that's a very formative top pairing. And then, we might be missing one key guy this week. So we'll see how that turns out. The other thing too to note is that Imran Alvi is going to be out for a few weeks now. And so how do we address that? Who goes in net? All that kind of stuff. Those are questions that remain to be answered. And that's going to be ongoing for the next few weeks.
We do have somebody slotted to go in net. So the goalie is the backup goalie is there, but obviously we miss Imran, and Imran is definitely, in my eyes, on the top half of the goaltenders in the league. So not having him around, even if it's for a couple of weeks, is a big loss for Ihsan. Look, in terms of speed, I think that our top line can match against their top line quite well. Now, the biggest criticism with Yakin has been there seems to be some level of drop off after the first, the top five guys, right? And so it's going to be interesting. Like, I didn't watch the last game, so I don't know were they short or did they roll through their lines? Did they?
No, I saw the second line out there, and I mean, as much as the second line, I thought they did just as impressive. Like, they were pretty much most of the time in the offensive zone.
Okay, so it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see. As now our second line is also redesigned as well, right, with the addition of Wahaj. So I think that this might be a game where there's a little bit of feeling out happening. But I wouldn't discount Ihsan at all.
I agree, Sawi. And on Yakin, there are two guys who still haven't played a single game yet, Osama Rao and Mohsen Mahbub. So it'll be interesting to see if they end up showing up, or whether the team decides to make changes or just kind of stand pat with it.
Yeah, I think it'll be a very interesting game to see how Ihsan handles, I guess, their lineup change. Because again, with Mobeen gone, he's not obviously recognized as one of the top players necessarily on his team, but he brought a lot to that third line. He tired them out so that when your top line did come out, they played really well. So it'll be interesting to see how that ripples through the rest of the lineup with his absence and the addition of the new brother.
Well, I mean, there's only 2 days left to see.
Yep.
We're playing in 48 hours.
Oh yeah.
Ooh, nice. All right, gentlemen. On that note, I think we're gonna call this a night here. Can't wait to get back into it, guys. It'll be fun.
Absolutely.
Looking forward to Friday.
Inshallah.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
All right. Good luck, boys. All right. Assalamu alaikum.
Take care.